Washington football. Woo! Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Burgundy Zone. I am your host, Kyle, and I'm not joined by my two co-hosts. Reed will not be here. He is over at the in-laws. Hall will be here very, very soon. But the Burgundy Zone is a part of the Frederick Podcast Network. You can find out more by going to www.listenfrederick.com. The title of this episode is the Senior Bowl Special. So we thought we'd have the attendee to the Senior Bowl, Mr. Ryan Fowler of the Bleacher Report. Thank you for joining us on this beautiful Sunday, brother, and giving us this recap. How you doing?
Absolutely. Always appreciate you having me on, Kyle.
Yes, sir. Ryan, let's get into it. Before we get into the big hires, the speculation, the rumors of what could be lying ahead, let's recap the brief past week. First one I have for you. Who is the biggest riser from the Senior Bowl in your eyes?
Man, for me, it's Roman Wilson, wide receiver from Michigan. I really can't find enough good things to say about the wide receiver out of Michigan. Coming down there off of a national championship, has to be an appreciation for just flat out stud ball players that may not fit a lot of teams' thresholds, height, weight, speed. Wide receiver one, that's not going to be Roman Wilson. You're not going to hear his name called on Thursday when we get to Detroit in April. But I fully believe he's going to be a second-round pick. I think he's someone that comes in as a high-level wide receiver two, immensely high-level wide receiver three. He was fantastic on every single day of practice. Now, he didn't even show up Thursdays to practice, and that's an obvious decision from his representatives at Wasserman that, look, he didn't need to practice on Thursday, and he didn't need to be in the game on Saturday. What he did on Tuesday and Wednesday, the first 2 days of practice, was sensational. It didn't matter if they were running indies. You could see his preparation and the attention that he pays attention to, the details of the position, the nuances of the position, the route running, the hands. I don't care if they're in 7-on-7, finding soft spots in zone, or the 1-on-1 rep that went viral against Quinyon Mitchell, that he's reaching back and catches it with one hand. He actually went out prior to that play where he's a little bit banged up and people didn't think he's going to come back in. Coaches were like, Roman, we need you back on the field for a 1-on-1 rep. And he goes in and makes Quinyon Mitchell look a little bit silly on that play.
And Quinyon Mitchell isn't a silly prospect. He's very good.
Right. You're gonna see his name called most likely in the top 32 picks when we get to April. And Roman, for me, Kyle, was just flat out sensational.
Wow, I'm glad to hear because I know the Michigan kid, he's been rising up draft boards, and there's a lot of guys there, obviously. But to bring this to Washington a little bit, I want to talk about the college game because you obviously have a lot of knowledge in regards to the college football atmosphere. And right now, Washington does not have an OC. So I'm going to give you three options, either Kliff Kingsbury, Chip Kelly, or Eric Bieniemy retained as OC. What do you think probably is the best bet for Washington?
Yeah, I didn't appreciate how Eric Bieniemy kind of approached last year and putting all the onus on Sam Howell. I know we've had our conversations about that, but the way in which certain games were approached and the putting all the pressure a lot of the time on Sam, even though they were chasing ball games, I didn't like sometimes how the adjustments for me really weren't there early on in ball games, especially when they moved in the second half of ball games that they were in towards the middle portion, the early portion of the season. But when I look at those three guys, Kliff Kingsbury, for me, he does intrigue me in the fact that when you look at the offense and what he ran for the multiple years he was in Arizona and what he's done with Caleb Williams and Lincoln Riley at USC, people think of the air raid offense and they think we're just going to line up in 10 personnel with one running back, no tight ends, spread them out, maybe one or two reads, understand what we're thinking pre-snap, and I'm going to pick you apart. Now, you look at the rushing numbers in Arizona, and I believe, don't quote me here, I think I'm right, though, as far as sitting in the top half of the league, both in rushing yards and rushing attempts for the Arizona Cardinals when Kingsbury was out there. So that myth of you don't run the ball when you're running an air raid offense, it's a myth when it comes to Kingsbury's group. And when I look at the skill set, too, Kyle, of Washington's receivers, with Terry McLaurin, Jahan Dotson, we'll see if Curtis Samuel comes back. The way in which Kliff Kingsbury wants to run his offense is getting guys on those shallow crossers and guys in space, athletes running across the field underneath zone and forcing teams in man to say, man, I got to run across the field with a 4-3 Terry McLaurin. I can't do that. That's a lot of the staples and architecture of Kliff Kingsbury's offense. And I personally would not be mad at all if he is the hire ultimately moving into these next potentially few days, today, or the next few weeks.
You know, I would absolutely love that. But that being said, if it is Kliff Kingsbury, Ryan, with the number 2 overall pick Washington has, if it is Kliff, do you see it being Caleb Williams? Because a lot of people are saying Caleb's going number one, right? So I don't know what you're going to do there. But if I'm Caleb Williams, just in my conspiracy mind, I'm going to say I'm going to try my best to go to number two. I know Shane Waldron is currently a coach at where Caleb is training at the moment. But honestly, I feel like there's a little bit more weight to Kliff than there would be Shane, right?
There absolutely is. I mean, I personally, I mean, I think we'd all love to see Caleb Williams come back home. Or I grew up in the Bowie area, went to Gonzaga. Would have been cool. Maybe he stayed home and maybe went to Maryland and rep the Terps helmet for a little bit, a couple of years, or even Virginia Tech or something like that. But
Hmm.
look, Caleb Williams at two, if he slips there, would be a home run. I know we sat here last year and talked about maybe if Christian Gonzalez was at 16,
Right.
and he was, and the team didn't go there. Now that's a whole other conversation for another time. But just sometimes I think this year, Kyle, it just reminds me so much of 2012 with Andrew Luck or RG3. It's a very similar situation. So I think they will stay at two. I think the non-sexy route is to maybe sit back, trade back, go 10 or 11. And you want to go just grit some more picks, maybe get a tackle, maybe get a quarterback if JJ McCarthy or Bo Nix is your guy. But overall, just take a Caleb, take a Drake, start this thing foundation up, new OC, new head coach, new GM, new ownership, and let's build this thing up from the ground up.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. But that being said, let's say they do go with quarterback in round one and Caleb or Jaden Daniels, so to speak. In the second round, they have two picks there at 30, 36 at 40. What would you do in that second round if you're Washington?
I think we look at Dan Quinn and what he wants to do defensively, where it's a very simple coverages that he wants to run. A lot of cover one, cover two, cover three, but what he does pre-snap, or excuse me, post-snap to force quarterbacks to really get their brain going, whether he forces linebackers to do what corners do or corners to do what linebackers do, and he relies on the front four. So, and those top 50 picks right there after the first round, I wouldn't be shocked if Washington were to go potentially a Darius Robinson from Missouri, an edge rusher to get some pop off the edge, and as well a tackle. Whether that's if you see Talise Fuaga maybe slip a little bit, Jordan Morgan from Arizona is a focus of mine right there. Kingsley Suamatia was at BYU. Both those guys were at the Senior Bowl, sensational all week long. So for me, post round one, I think really tackle an edge, or maybe for me, I love Jaheim Bell from Florida State. And the ability for him to play the H, play the F,
Yeah.
that another offensive weapon, I think would be a nice pick, but I don't think I'd take him in the top 40, 45 picks right now if I were Adam Peters.
Yeah, because it did seem like he wasn't on the field all the time. It seemed like at Florida State, but I did
Yeah.
enjoy doing my film breakdown of him. Ryan, that guy is obviously fluid, smooth, and one hell of an athlete.
Yeah.
My next question for you did bring him up already, but we got to talk about the backwards hat, Mr. Dan Quinn. What were you hearing about Dan Quinn down at Senior Bowl week around just being around NFL personnel and the like, but also your reaction to him? What do you expect?
Yeah, I had a quick conversation with Adam Peters when he was down in
Oh,
Mobile.
really?
I did, and it wasn't a 5, 10 minute conversation. It was very brief, introducing myself as well. But everything that I heard is that look, they love Dan Quinn, they love his mentality. He's well respected. Now, a lot of that stuff for Commanders fans may say that sounds a lot like Ron Rivera,
Right.
but Dan Quinn is not Ron Rivera. And really, when I look at it from a fundamental standpoint, Dan Quinn and his energy and the ability to just rally guys and say, look, you're going to show up. If you don't, I'm going to sit you. And I play with a fire. I want defenses and my guys on the field to get after people. And I'm going to rely on guys like John Allen and Deron Payne. If you're not getting it done, I'm going to bring in other people to do so. And look, there were a lot of questions with Dan Quinn as far as people were, well, what happened in the Green Bay game? Is this guy the guy? And I initially thought that maybe that Green Bay game specifically and how he was tore up from that Green Bay offense may cost him the DC job in Dallas and overall head coaching opportunities. But you take away that game, you see what he did in Atlanta, and you even see what he did orchestrating that Legion of Boom defense in Seattle years ago. And I'm excited for him to come in this building and just evolve this group. I mean, interested to see what he does at linebacker. We all know that Jamin Davis is the only linebacker under contract this year. There was a lot of struggles for Dallas at the second level. They drafted Micah Parsons to play off-ball linebacker. They tried to make it work with a guy like Jabril Cox, Damone Clark, DeMarvion Overshown was hurt this year. We forget that Leighton Vander Esch and Sean Lee and Jalen Smith were there, and that was their core. So I'm excited for Dan Quinn. I'm just trying to stay as positive as possible and let us just have a little foundation and build around it before we ever bring the torches up and go bring the pitchforks to Adam Peters' front doorstep. So let's just let this thing play out, and I think they'll figure it out themselves.
My man. Now, that being said, we are joined by our next guest, who apparently were wearing the same type of sweatshirts today. I wish we would have coordinated this ahead of time. But that being said, looking at this team, like you talk about linebacker, talk about some of those middle to late round guys. I know Peyton Wilson most likely will be probably like the third, fourth round. Talk about linebackers like that that could be added here that would gel well with what Dan Quinn likes to do.
Man, I'll tell you what, Kyle, the linebacker class for me is underrated. I think the industry
Okay.
isn't looking at these linebackers a ton. Now, Danny Stutzman going back to Oklahoma and Barrett Carter going back to Clemson threw a little bit of a wrench in the process a couple weeks ago. But Edrin Cooper from A&M was out at Shrine. He didn't practice. He just did interviews. I would like to see him down in Mobile and compete. That's what makes Mobile so darn special is these guys strap up and compete their tails off all 3 days of practicing in the game. But Cedric Gray, from North Carolina. This is a guy that had day one grades back in the spring from teams. And
Mm.
I think he'd be available as you move into the back end of round two, early portions of round three. He was sensational out at practice all week long, whether he's playing within the hashes or he's extending out to the numbers in the run game. He is fast as all get out. I mean, I saw him chasing Lad McConkey across the screen, across the field, excuse me, on a crosser, and he's running hip to hip with him.
Whew.
He's a grown man. He's physical. He's excellent in space, one-on-one opportunities. He's taking guys down, and he's not afraid to blitz to the A and B gaps as well that we know Dan Quinn would like to do, be physical within those areas. So that specific spot, as far as late round two, round three, I think Cedric Gray from North Carolina will be an excellent addition inside the core of this Washington defense.
My man. Now, do you want to, Hall, do you want to ask a question before the wrap up?
Yeah, I was gonna say one big free agent going into this offseason that a lot of people are talking about is Kam Curl. And I was gonna ask you, how do you think that Kam Curl would fit inside of Dan Quinn's defense? Or are you going with a younger pieces like a Quan Martin and Derek Forrest, and you letting Kam Curl walk in free agency?
Yeah, I mean, personally, everything I've heard out of Kam Curl's camp is that they want to be back in Washington. Kam Curl wants to be here, but money talks, and that will obviously figure itself out here in the next few months. But I think I would love to see Kam Curl in this defense. I think he'd thrive. I think you saw what Dallas tried to do with even a guy like Marquise Belt, where he
Right.
was safety and then came in and played that hybrid, or Keanu Neal over the years. I think Kam Curl would thrive there. He's just a heck of a ball player that can really do anything for you. That modern day chess piece type of defender. But if they do let Kam Curl walk and they do want Quan or Derek to do some more things and they want to add a piece, guys, watching Bo Braid from Maryland, I don't want him living high as that single high safety that everybody likes, the Kyle Hamiltons and Derwin Jameses of the world. But you want a guy to play that robber spot within the middle of your defense, a lot like we saw Kam Curl do. Turn on the Ohio State tape, the Michigan tape, the Michigan State tape of Bo Braid. I had a chance to interview him as well down in Mobile. And he said Washington had multiple interviews with him. They said they all went well. So look, that type of body type to live in the middle of your defense, if Washington were to let Kam Curl walk, Bo Braid from Maryland may be an addition later portions of round two and into round three.
My man. Now to wrap this up, Ryan, I only have a couple more questions for you. But Jonathan Allen spoke again this week and said he liked what he was hearing around from what the team was doing, what the new coach was saying. What is your feeling with Jonathan Allen? Because some people have speculated that he could be traded at some point. What do you think about John?
I respect John more than anybody really in football. Him and Terry McLaurin, my time when I was with Washington to get to know those guys. As a local kid out of Stonebridge, we all know the story right near the facility. John Allen is an absolute alpha. I think at times this year he maybe disappeared a little bit, but that's the expectation that we have with a guy like 93. I love John Allen. I love him, and not just as a leader in the locker room, but a player on the football field playing one tech, three tech. The guy will line up at safety if you ask him to do that too. If you ever in a pinch, we'll never see that, but that's the type of guy that John Allen is. I love 93. Hopefully he's in Washington for a long, long time. He's still the core of this defense, whether Duran's here or not. And I'm looking forward to see his progression with Dan Quinn moving into 24.
And next question I have for you. Now that Dan Quinn is the head coach, Witt has been brought over and is supposed to be the defensive coordinator. I'm not sure if it's actually official yet. But with that being said, what's some players on defense that you think this will benefit the most?
Man, what are we gonna do about Jamin Davis at linebacker? Every single year we sit here and say, is there progression going to be taken from 52? This is moving into almost 5 years in the league now at this point, and I still haven't seen him fit the run, excuse me, correctly. That New England game specifically was a joke, really, from Jamin Davis. But really, it turns to Emmanuel Forbes
Mm.
on the outside. I still have confidence in the kid. I'm not giving up on him. What he did with Quinn did with Deron Bland, Trayvon Diggs, even Stephon Gilmore, who people said he was over the hill after winning Defensive Player of the Year with the New England Patriots years ago. I'm excited for Dan Quinn to get his fingerprints on Emmanuel Forbes because they drafted him to be an instinctive ball player. You see how Dan Quinn evaluates Deron and Trayvon in Dallas. And I'm excited for Emmanuel to get to work in Dan Quinn's defense.
Absolutely. That's what I was saying the other day, and I can't wait for it. I'm sure Emmanuel Forbes, obviously, is
Yeah.
receptive to it as well. But last question I have for you, some players that you just like to highlight from the Super Bowl week and how they looked and just how they, as prospects, you think that they would do well with Washington. Before we started recording, we were talking about Tyler Guyton.
Man. I said to you, Kyle, before the recording, and I'll say it now. For me, there's not a huge separation between Olufushanu and Tyler Guyton from Oklahoma. There really isn't, in my opinion. Joe Alt is my top tackle in this class. Seeing Talise Fuaga and Kingsley Suamatia down there and all the big boys, Jordan Morgan, they were fantastic and they lived up to expectation. But Tyler Guyton just moves different at the position. I don't think he gets out of the top 15 picks. If he does, it's a heck of a steal. I think he's going to be an immediate plug and play player at whatever side. I know he lived at right tackle for the Sooners. He has the athletic ability to play left tackle. But a guy I really wanted to focus on, two guys I wanted to focus on a little bit, was Jarvis Brownlee, corner from Louisville, who wasn't even supposed to be in Mobile, guys. Quincy Riley, his teammate, initially accepted the invite, went back to school, and from what I heard from Louisville DB coaches was that he's expecting himself to be the round one pick in the 2025 draft. So Jarvis came down there, and he was arguably the top corner not named Quinyon Mitchell down in Mobile. And then another guy is Jared Wiley, tight end from TCU. I thought he was going to come out last year and declare. I would have liked him on day 3, but he showed up multiple days of practice, didn't play in the game, and just sensational. Can play the Y with his hand in the dirt, flex out in spaces at F. Bigger boy, but he also runs extremely well, can separate, and he's excellent inside the red zone as well. Not just on a little Jay Gruden fade ball in the back of the end zone, but also in the front areas as well, boxing out defenders on his back hip as well. And also, just because my mind is spinning right now, guys, I wanted to talk a little bit about Jaquan Jackson, wide receiver from Tulane, specifically because Curtis Samuel may leave. And in that type of role to where pre-snap motion, if you bring in Kliff Kingsbury potentially as your OC and spread it out a little bit, that guy in multiple levels of the defense also provides you some special teams pop. I sat down with Jaquan in Mobile, and that interview will be out soon on my social media, but he is just a dude that you want on your football team and you want in your locker room. He just is, you could just tell the type of attention that he pays to the nuances of the position, and someone I think that's going to come into an offense, and be an immediate impact player. And he's also been running 4.3s in training with a bum ankle, so he can absolutely fly too.
Oh, absolutely. And we know that from Terry McLaurin and his 40 that he ran. But Ryan, real quick before you get out of here, Patrick Paul, what have you seen from him at Senior Bowl week?
There were some ups and downs from Patrick Paul, and that's what I expected to see from Patrick. I mean, he turned on the Texas tape where the first half against a guy named Ethan Burke, that was a true sophomore, number 91, is going to come out next year, kicked his butt in the first half. But then Patrick, whatever he did at halftime, whatever he ate, whatever he heard from his coaches, came out in the second half and looked like an all-pro. Yeah, exactly. Came out here in the second half. So Patrick was fine. I didn't think didn't look like a first-round pick to me. I think he's going to be a guy that's going to be a top 40, top 45 pick in this class. Technically, he's got a ways to go. Looks the part. Big dude. I have a picture of him and Chris, who is down there as well. So both those guys seen him down there. I asked them, hey, maybe we'll see both you guys in the Burgundy and Gold next year. They said they would love to see that happen. But I thought Patrick was fine in Mobile, not great.
Would you be happy at 40 with him?
That's maybe a little rich for me, but maybe top 50, top 55. I think that'd be fine.
My man. Brian, I can't thank you enough for joining us as always, brother. Would you like to provide your social media handle and your show, just in case anybody watching hasn't followed you yet and would like to, brother?
Absolutely. On social media, Twitter or X is _Ryan Fowler, and then my Commanding the Huddle podcast comes out once a week in the off season. So we'll have one out just a couple hours here on Monday morning.
My man. Ryan, have a great evening, sir. Enjoy the Super Bowl week. We'll see you next one.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, guys.
Thanks, brother.
Appreciate it. All
right, everybody. We just spoke with the man, Mr. Ryan Fowler. Always appreciate Ryan and his opinion. But we are also joined by a very special co-host for this episode, since Reed most likely will not be making it with us. But before we introduce him, Mr. Andy Lockhart in the UK from the 1 Point Safety Show with the proper background there. How are you doing today, brother?
Yeah, I'm good, man. I'm good. How are you doing?
Doing a lot better today than I was yesterday, to be honest with you, Andy, because I think a lot of it has to do with the OC. Because if you listen to our last episode, I thought the hiring of Dan Quinn brought a lot more questions to the number 2 overall pick, what you're doing on offense, what's the kind of long-term vision here. But with the theories of Kliff Kingsbury and others, I feel a lot better about the situation. How do you feel?
Yeah, same, to be honest. Obviously for me, Quinn probably wasn't even in my top 4 or 5 candidates, to be honest. So when we signed him, well, it didn't move the needle. I wasn't happy about it, and I wasn't really upset either. But as you say, it did give me more questions about the OC position, how important that's going to be, being that Dan's a defensive guy, obviously.
It felt like the fans' reaction, Andy. It felt very similar to the when we signed Ryan Fitzpatrick.
It's good. It's a good one, to be fair. Good comparison. It's like anything, isn't it? I mean, Fitzpatrick again, he didn't move the needle for me either, and he shouldn't be playing in water slides and all the rest of it. But it is what it is. But yeah, man, I'm just thinking it's so important that we get this OC position right, because if it is Kingsbury, I'm thinking that we're going to go Jaden Daniels at 2. That's what I think we're going to do. He likes a very mobile quarterback, as we know from his Kyler Murray days. So I think we're going to go Jaden Daniels at 2 if we get Kingsbury. But he's still a lot better than Chip Kelly and guys like that. That's been banded about. No, stay away from that dude.
You don't know. A lot of people on Twitter believe in Chip Kelly. I honestly did not know that, Andy, until this weekend when it was like rumored to be a thing. But before we get all into that, because I'm sure we have other fan questions that pertain to that. But Hall, I want to go to you with this one for the Colonel. His question is, with Dan Quinn taking over as head coach, any possibility we'll see Matt Ryan as a mentor or backup? He did say when he became an analyst last year that he could be available to the right team.
No, I think Matt Ryan's, like you talked about, over the hill. I definitely think he's over the hill. I think that even if he was coming on as like a mentor, like backup role, I wouldn't want a guy like Matt Ryan to get on the field right now.
Don't think about him in a jersey. Think about him with a clipboard. Would you be open to that?
Oh, as like a quarterback coach or something like that?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like he would definitely be a good coach. He was obviously a high-level quarterback when he was in the league at one point. Obviously, he knows Dan Quinn well.
Even as an offensive consultant, why not?
Yeah, like some type of offensive consultant, quarterback coach, something like that. I mean, yeah, I wouldn't mind that just because, again, he's always been talked about as like a very smart, intelligent quarterback, and he just looks like one of those guys that like, obviously we've seen him as the analyst and calling like games and how he breaks down the games and whatnot. So it seems like he would be a good teacher and a good, like I said, like a quarterback coach or some type of offensive consultant to kind of mentor a young quarterback coming into the NFL. So I wouldn't mind that. But yeah, I thought you meant like as far as like a backup quarterback or something like that. Like
he did include that, but he did include it. I just think that like, let's be real. Like obviously a playoff team could pick up Matt Ryan next year and he could go there, but it's not like, do I think that he's going to come on here full season? No. But it would make sense if Dan Quinn is relying on him for kind of scouting purposes, kind of what you see. I mean, this is a guy that did really well in Kyle Shanahan's system, right? And so you're talking about a kid that knows these complex offenses, and that bringing him on here would really, really help in that regard, and just being able to get the information to the quarterback on what they honestly want to do, and knowing Kyle Shanahan's system. I said, why not, dude? I mean, Matt Ryan is a great guy. Obviously, all hands on deck. I'm not going to say no to it. Even Logan Paulson. I thought it was funny because, Grant tweeted out that Logan Paulson said he'd be open to position on the coaching staff. Like, hell yeah, man, so am I. What's up, bro? But what do you think, Andy?
Yeah, I mean, I think he'd be useful, but as you say, as a like passing game coordinator or some sort of thing like that, more than an actual player. Because let's face it, I mean, Tavita Pritchard, I mean, we don't know much about this guy. I mean, and to be fair, all we've seen from that last season is that Howell got worse. So for me, he should be on his way out, and we do need somebody else in there. So why not? But again, depends if it's more money than his contract he's got at doing his analyst job. That's another thing as well. So
yeah, well, like with Pritchard, I don't think Pritchard did a bad job. I just think that like Pritchard is doing what his boss is telling him to do. And maybe it's just like he's not in a position to say, no, that's stupid, I'm going to do it my own way. You know what I mean? And I think that sort of excuse could be there for people like Pritchard and others. Like, look, man, I have no idea what was going on behind those closed doors. Like, we hear all these media reports that players don't want to play for EB, but then we hear Sam Howell asking guys on the side, like, where did you guys hear all this? Because nobody is saying it. And, like, we honestly don't know. And we live in the Matrix, my friend. Hall, do you want to have anything to add?
I mean, all I see
Sure.
is that he got worse. He got worse throughout the season. So is there an element of on Pritchard? Sure, I think there is, and also obviously EB. He ruined his confidence. Let's face it. But um, definitely part of it.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Now, this next question, Andy, this one is from Hog on the Mountain on Twitter. He said, which is the better move? Trade back, amass even more capital, build a roster, then get a QB, or give up a bunch of that capital to move up and grab Williams, then build around him? There's clearly upside to both methods of thinking.
I mean, out of those two options, I'd go for the first one. I think you leave Caleb alone unless he drops to us at 2. I don't think you go up and spend an absolute fortune going up one space. Chicago in a bind here, I believe so. And they're going to try and sell that off for big assets before the draft even starts. But I don't think we're going to be the team going up. So for me, if we had to choose one of those two, I'd pick the first one. What's his name? Peters and his boss at the time, can't remember his name now for the 49ers.
Lynch.
Lynch. Those two guys in the first season, they had a similar pick. I think there were 2 or 3 in the draft, and they dropped down. They came down.
That was for Solomon Thomas, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and you amassed a lot more picks. And I think that could be an option. It just depends, man. It just depends. But for me, those two options, the first one for me.
Yes, but we also have to think, we also have to think about the political aspect of this, the business aspect of this. 100% in San Francisco, they traded back, right? They were able to go get Solomon Thomas, but they also traded up for Trey Lance. Somebody could argue here, Hog. But all I'll say is in this situation, there is a business aspect to it that is always going to be attributed to it. Them being a new ownership, new GM, new head coach, it would put fans back in the stands if they got the quarterback, right? I'm not going to say that trading up is probably the best bet because I think you can still get that same excitement out of any of these quarterbacks sitting at 2. But the idea of trading back, I think, is awesome to think about, given the fact with Dan Quinn. But if you're adding somebody like Kliff Kingsbury, I think that you should probably want to go get that quarterback to kind of build up that momentum for your team, to kind of say this is a new age, new thing, right? Now, I love the idea of getting more picks, but I also want to get elite playmakers. And that's something that this team has been lacking and let go of, and I'm tired of it, and we need to be able to see talent and get talent and keep talent.
Yeah, what were the options? Either trade up or trade back?
Yeah.
Those are the 2 options?
For a quarterback.
Yeah. I mean, I guess if I'm going for a quarterback, I guess I'm trading back one spot. So it's like, I'm not trading out of the top 3. I know everyone wants to run it back with Sam Howell or put some elite pieces around Sam Howell and build the line, see what he can do. I understand that, but like you said, the business aspect of it, the selling ticket aspects of it, the putting the butts in the seats aspect of it, it's not going to be running it back with Sam Howell. It's going to be the brand new toy, the brand new shiny toy, which is the new quarterback coming in that hopefully is like the new savior of the team, kind of like the RG3 thing. And so I think that, I guess if staying put was an option, I would say stay put. But I would say technically, if I had to pick one of the 2 options between trading up, I guess I would say trade up. And like you said, a guy like Kliff Kingsbury who knows Caleb Williams, and Caleb Williams being from the DMV, I just think that would be the ultimate, just not only hopefully on the field win, but I think it would be a huge off the field win just for marketing purposes. And like you said, obviously at the end of the day, they want to win games. They want to build a championship team, get to the Super Bowl, but deny that Josh Harris is also in this partners. 1A option also is to put butts in the seats and make that money back that they just spent on the team. So I think that, like I said, at the end of the day, I would say, I guess, trade up just because Caleb Williams, the marketing aspect of it. And if you trade out of the second spot, more than likely you're going to miss out on the top 3 quarterbacks in this draft. And I don't think that would go over as well with the fan base as a whole.
And normally, Hog, I 100% agree with you. I think trading back, amassing good picks, solid picks, being able to hit on those picks, building the team up into a machine, and then getting a quarterback to bring into the machine, a lot like San Francisco has done with Jimmy Garoppolo and now obviously Brock Purdy. They tried to get greedy with a little bit with Trey Lance, but luckily they were built well enough and hit late round picks to the point where it didn't kill them. They were still able to rely on somebody like Brock Purdy to be able to get them across the finish line. And I think
People, no, I was gonna say people keep bringing up, oh, look at San Francisco, they built it and dropped the quarterback in, blah blah blah. They didn't really build it up. They traded for Jimmy Garoppolo. Then they went on that 5-game, 6-game winning streak, and then they started building it around Jimmy Garoppolo. And then obviously, like they put great pieces around, like with Adam Peters and all those guys.
They're not the
and
only
then they tried to trade up for Trey Lance, and they just happened to hit on Brock Purdy. So all I'm saying is, like, even a guy like Kyle Shanahan, like, yes, you can say, oh, he did it with Brock Purdy, he did it with Jimmy Garoppolo. They also realized that, hey, we need a playmaker, an elite, and what they thought was going to be an elite playmaker at that quarterback position. Because even guys like, look at Pat Mahomes, like, obviously, even a guy like Joe Burrow, like, you can say that
they still got Jamar Chase.
Exactly. They still got Jamar Chase, and Pat Mahomes still has Travis Kelce. Like, yes, he lost Tyreek Hill, but you still need, like you said, you still need elite blue chip players that you can get at the top of a draft board. And I think that you cannot miss out on an opportunity like that right now.
Yeah, I agree with you a lot. I will also say San Francisco is not the only one who has done this. Seattle, when they did this with dropping in Russell Wilson. Also, I guess you couldn't really say Atlanta.
But you can't even say they dropped in Russell Wilson because they traded for Matt Flynn. Russell Wilson was never the plan.
Well, no, 100%. What I'm saying is, like, they built the machine and then added the quarterback into the machine, so to speak. Denver is another good example of Peyton Manning. They built up that defense, and then they added Peyton in, and he kind of added Wes Welker and others to kind of get them over the top. But the fact is, regardless, Atlanta is one of the teams you could say it would be what we're trying to strive to do, right? New coach, new quarterback, everything new, and then start from there. And there was good success there. You never know what's going to go on for the future. Anything else to add, Andy? I know you've been quiet a little bit.
No, that's all right, man. Yeah, I just think there's two, like every scenario, there's multiple scenarios, but if you do pick quarterback at 2, and you mentioned before the bums in the seats and the excitement level, I get it. I totally get it. But the thing is that if you get him in and don't have enough picks and you don't protect him, this guy's going to be banged out the team in about 4 weeks and be injured, and then that's the end of the season. So, you do need to protect this guy as well. He is now going to be your superstar, and you've got to get it right, and you've got to have a solid line, and we don't have that. We have one good player on the offensive line, and that is it. So, and that's Cosme. So everybody else, so we need to do big time either moves in the free agency or whatever it is to be able to supplement this. Otherwise, the waste time getting that superstar QB because you'll get hurt.
Yeah, and that's my argument about trading up. I've always said I don't like the idea of trading up, especially in the situation that we're in, because of what we have to do in order to help the quarterback around him. Obviously, we have weapons around him. It's just more so of creating that foundation and kind of young, looking forward mindset, because we've added a lot of old Band-Aids to the situation, and we need more so a foundation in that breadth. And that's why I really like the idea of going with this quarterback and then building around him in that regard. And I think that's probably the best case scenario for this football team at the current moment. Now, the next question that we have, Andy, this is from in the Discord chat, is from our guy Arch. What are your thoughts on John Allen, and have they changed or stay the same?
I mean, we see it as fans. And the thing is, as well, is that John Allen's a fan. That's one thing you got to think about. So when we're getting beat all the time, he's bound to be pissed off. And then these guys are always getting interviewed straight after a loss, and just got to shower, just got your kit on, your normal clothes on, and you got cameras in your face. So the guy's obviously still raging from actually losing the game earlier on. So you're going to expect him to say things that in the heat of the moment and those type of things. I mean, I'm willing to forgive him. And I think as well is that you could actually give him a better contract that actually helps us out with our cap issues as well. So to give us even more money available. So I mean, I'm okay with it. I mean, I didn't like him going around saying I want to trade, but as I say, if he spoke to Peters, he seems happier. So why not?
Yeah, look, I said a while ago that, I know Tim Towner didn't like it when I said this, but I was disappointed in John and after his comments. And I'm not saying that he's wrong for feeling the way that he does. Well, I'm disappointed in John in not understanding the long-term view kind of thing here. And I understand. I wouldn't want to lose anything. I even had my own outburst on here as well. But the fact is that John is supposed to be better than that, but it's supposed to be better than me and what I do, right? And John, what I told John when we recorded is that, you're going to be here when we finally reach that glory. You are going to be here. And obviously I want him to reach it, but you have to understand growing up in Virginia, going to school in Virginia, being in this area, you got to understand it was going to be harder than anything you've ever done before. It's going to take everything out of you. And I know John, it's hard for him, but my feelings haven't changed with John. I'm still disappointed in the same breath, but I'm happy that would be happy with staying here. I don't want the guy hating the fact that he's here. Like, I wouldn't want him on my team. Like, if you don't want to be here, then go, dude, because you're not helping us in that regard. You know what I mean?
100%, man.
Yeah, my feelings haven't really changed. I know that it was already talked about throughout the year that he was probably playing like with an injury for a majority of the year, and he had a lot of stuff going on. So
yeah, dude,
his play dipped. His play dipped a little bit, and obviously he's not going to make excuses. I'm not making excuses for him. He's not going to make excuses about it because obviously he never brought it up. But I would say that his play dipped a little bit, but I think if he comes back healthy next year, I think that I know people were pissed off because he's like, oh, I think about getting traded when he was on the Junkies and blah, blah, blah. I get that because the dude's been in the league. He's coming from high school where he's probably a winner. He's going to Alabama where he did nothing but win. Then you come here and this is a dumpster fire for your entire NFL career. All you know pretty much is losing. You know what I'm saying? So, I get his frustration and I get the point where, he was supposed to be going through the rebuild, now. You know what I'm saying? This part of his career was supposed to be this coming up on his second contract or whatever, or his third contract, I guess, was supposed to be the end of the rebuild. And he's supposed to be winning. So it's hey, I'm going to stay with my team and finish what I started. And he's kind of looking at it well, I was already supposed to be going through a rebuild, and why do I want to sit through another rebuild again? But I do think that he was talking out of frustration, and I think that, like I said, he's just like us. You know what I'm saying? We want to see a winning team. He wants to be on a winning team. So I think that at the end of the day, if they do trade him, I wouldn't be mad. But if he wants to stay, I would be glad that he's here and stuff like that. Obviously, he's a captain on the team. He's a good locker room dude. And I think that he could be an integral part of this defense going forward if he wants to buy into Dan Quinn and what he has in store as their vision, him and Adam Peters. So I think that also, at the end of the day, it comes down to money. So if they're going to offer him a little bit of money to stay, then I'll be glad that he's still here.
Yeah, he has no guaranteed money, does he?
No,
exactly.
And that's what everyone has been talking about. But I will say this: Dan Quinn is probably going to have John changing his do-rag to a backwards hat anytime now, and I'm happy if he would be on board. I just want John on board because
I just hope that
I truly do see John hoisting the Lombardi Trophy in a Commander's uniform. I
just hope that these players don't push back on Dan Quinn because we've seen where a guy like Eric Bieniemy comes in and everyone's kind of they're kind of giving him the pushback and kind of abrasive or whatever, blah, blah, blah. But then you see guys like Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, Pat Mahomes, literally dudes that are all pro players, Hall of Fame players that are saying yo, this dude changed my career. Give it time, embrace him. It's rough in the beginning, but he's doing it for the best, to get the best out of you. And I just hope that you hear a guy like Michael Parsons, who obviously he's a Cowboy, so we the Cowboys. But at the end of the day, Michael Parsons is a beast. He's an all-pro player, probably going to be in the Hall of Fame at some point in his career.
I don't know who that is.
He's a guy that's saying he's even saying Commanders players please embrace him, embrace what he's doing because he just wants to get the best out of you. So I just hope that the players are not going to come in with the attitude of oh, here we go again, a guy trying to change up my routine and blah blah blah. I want them to embrace the challenge of being a winning team and being a competitive team. So hopefully they embrace what Dan Quinn has to offer.
Well, they were 4-13. You better damn well be ready to frickin' change. I'll tell you that. My goodness. Now the next question from Arch. Andy, this one is a good one. What is an irrational opinion that you have about football that has nothing to do with football? Heart over head type thought.
Something about football that isn't about football.
Yeah, I think what Tim Towner said is that he was against the Deion Sanders trade to Washington or the signing type of thing.
kind of confusing question.
I know.
That's not why you give it to me. Yeah, cheers, mate.
Well, okay, I'll say this one. I'll say it's Jim Irsay. Okay, I'm sorry, but it's Jim Irsay. I don't like Jim Irsay at all, one freaking bit. I pray that he is in a better place right now. All I'll say, but I just don't like the guy.
Well, there you go, Hall. I don't know.
Well, I'll say I don't hate Jay Gruden like everyone hates Jay Gruden for some reason. Like, I don't know why we love to hate on like players and coaches that didn't work out here, and then they have opinion on the team and an opinion on stuff, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, you can't speak on it because you didn't win here, and it's like,
imagine if 980 right now called up Ron Rivera, was like, all right, Ron, hey, come over here. I want you to dissect all of Dan Quinn's coaching decisions from here on out. Like, you'd be like, yo, like that's not cool.
But I mean, they bring him on the talk. They don't really. I mean, he goes on Twitter and dissects the coaching decisions, stuff like that. He doesn't actually go on the radio and talk about he talks about the stuff here and there, but
I've
like
heard it.
I know, I'm saying he talks about stuff here and there, but like I don't know. Like the dude is a smart football guy, so I like listening to smart football people. Of
course he is.
So like people just like, oh, like Jay Gruden, he sucks. He let Deshaun Jackson pinch his nipple, so he can't talk about football. Like, come on.
Man, chilling. What? Anything else, Andy? You can think of something by now?
No?
Not
really.
Scott Turner, not even Scott Turner. You just hate Scott Turner.
Oh, Scott Turner. Oh yeah, but everyone hates Scott Turner. So that's not really irrational.
People tell you Eric Bieniemy is Black Scott Turner.
That is rational because he's god awful. So
Don't do that. Don't do that with EB. Now, the next question we have in the Discord is from Tim Towner. Andy, identify your top red flag when you hear that we may hire Kingsbury or Kelly.
Well, Kelly's the that old offense that he had.
Well, it's not really old, but yes.
It's old. When was he in charge at the Eagles? Was it 5 years ago, 8 years ago,
10 years ago? I would think about 10 years.
10 years, right? Okay, so that's pretty old. I mean, this hurry up offense is just no. It just didn't work. No one got into it. It was just god awful. So that's my red flag straight away. I know he's kind of changed it a little bit in the college, but it's still 80% of his old way of playing. Kingsbury, he's too nice. I mean, everyone said that. Everyone took the piss out of him. A bit like Jay Gruden, where all the players just kind of treated him like a friend / dirt at times. When he ended the day, he's the head coach. When he was at Arizona, and I think, okay, you can probably get away with it a little bit more with being as an offensive coordinator. You can still be the good guy, whereas you got Dan Quinn could be the bad guy if needed. But but that's like, yeah, he's just too nice. I think that's my red flag.
Okay, I'm with you. With Chip Kelly, my big red flag with Chip Kelly, honestly, I just think it's the mental aspect of it all. And I told you guys last week, I really respect what he does scheme-wise. But we had a guy who worked for us that wouldn't listen to what was very contentious, wouldn't do his job, was kind of scared a little bit about things. I told him at one point, I literally told him, I could go down to the street, find a homeless guy that would do your job for $20 right now. So either you do it or you're going home. And I ended up kicking him off my job site. I ended up telling my boss, hey, send him to somebody else. He went to somebody else, got bounced to somebody else, and inevitably ended up getting fired. Then a year or so later, he comes back and says, hey, man, do you think you could put in a good word for me to come back? What do you think all those guys said that trained him? They said, hell no. And what do you think the NFL's doing right now? Even the Raiders, even that stupid bowl cut redhead dude didn't even call up Chip Kelly to come in and call plays for them. I mean, what are we doing here? I'm sorry. I just really dislike Chip Kelly. It comes back to the fact of Riley Cooper and how long Riley Cooper stayed on that team for. But that's all I truly care about. But with Kingsbury, my big issue and red flag with Kingsbury is when he had Caleb Williams last season, it being a kind of young quarterback, Caleb did show some issues in being able to escape the pocket, not keeping control of the football. Well, how does Kingsbury plan to fix that? And why wasn't that fixed in season? That's my big red flag. Can you identify the issues and correct them? Because you can get away with it in college, a lot more so than you can in the NFL. So if that is the case moving forward, need to be able to identify those issues and fix them on time.
I'd say that red flag for me would be that we're going to give up picks to trade up to number one to get Caleb Williams. And it's not that I wouldn't want Caleb Williams as a quarterback, even though some things as far as like how he plays off script, like you can't be doing that all the time in the NFL. But my main red flag with Kingsbury would be that they're going to give away picks to go up to one to get Caleb Williams. And I want to keep all the picks that we have and, like I said, build the team out, whatever, blah, 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 with the picks that we have while staying at number two and still getting a quarterback. And with Chip Kelly, I know a lot of people are like talk about like the Eagle days and whatnot, and blah, blah, blah. But if you look at UCLA's offense and what he's done since like the Eagles days, he's kind of modernized his offense. He's not running like that hurry up, like fast-paced, quick offense like it used to be. It's not such a gimmicky offense like it used to be. It's not really like a college-y offense, if you want to call it that, like it used to be. It's actually look at Zach Charbonnet with the Seattle Seahawks. He was at UCLA. He put up huge numbers under Chip Kelly. So I think that like DTR as well, who's a Cleveland quarterback.
DTR from Cleveland, who was I think like a fifth-year quarterback, was actually putting up really good numbers at UCLA. He was actually my guy, like very pro-typical kind of offense they were running. But
yeah. So, but I mean, as far as like Chip Kelly goes, my red flag would be that he has that thing about him where he thinks he knows he's the smartest person in the room.
Right.
So he comes off as I'm the smartest person in the room. And I think that but again, as an OC, that kind of scares me because you can undermine the head coach and kind of like, you know what I'm saying, they can clash whatever, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, that would be the only red flag for me. It wouldn't be anything as far as like scheme-wise and football-wise on the field-wise. It would be more of I'm the smartest person in the room, and I know I'm the smartest person in the room, and I'm going to come off like I'm the smartest person in the room. And that definitely rubs people kind of the wrong way. So I think that that would be a red flag for him.
To be perfectly honest, for human upon human, I'm just going to be opening up to you guys a little bit. I wouldn't even want my son being coached by Chip Kelly, okay? I don't want Chip Kelly coaching a rookie quarterback. I'm just going to be perfectly honest with you. Look, there we go. There's my irrational take that's not based on football, I guess. Respect him and his scheme and everything like that. I got it. But I just, dude, for some reason, it's not like Brian Kelly. It's not that irrational. But I guess that's probably
he's not going to change up his whole like voice and accent because he's going to Louisiana. Like, hey, now y'all like start talking like a country dude. Like,
it's not even the worst thing that guy's done. Screw Brian Kelly. I hope he's asked for forgiveness for real. Otherwise, I'm like, Notre Dame, what are you guys doing? Now, next question in the Discord. Andy, look at Harris's history in sports, and you'll see he will tear things down and then rebuild. And in the NFL, we see teams rise from the bottom to the top three in 3 years. The teams that have made this jump have made deals with draft picks, like Philly, Houston, and Miami, which says having the number 2 overall pick allows you to make a trade for picks over the next 3 years. How is this not a good thing?
Oh, it is a good thing. I mean,
he's saying because you'd be not taking that trade and taking a quarterback, vice trading back is basically what the question is.
I mean, you can still get a solid quarterback if you did trade down. As I said before, I'm in the realm of if Kingsbury signs for us, we go Daniels at 2. That's what's going to happen. And if we don't, then we might actually trade down a little bit, maybe to 6 with the Giants or 8 to Atlanta. Then I could see that happening. And as I say, because he's done it before, so you go off people's past records, don't you? That's all you can go off at this moment is what did he do a few years ago in the same situation? Well, actually, this is what he did do. He traded down, he got loads more picks, and hit on a few late rounds, etc. Brilliant. So it is a good thing that we can do it either way. We can go anywhere we want, and that is the nice thing about it. That's a nice thing what we've got. We don't have to drop down. We don't have to go up. We can stay where we're at, and we can still get a high level quality player. So, I mean, I've got no issues with what he's talking about or anything like that. I mean, I'm with Harris. I mean, with having half a team, let's face it, half our team's a natural free agent at the end of the season. So he can break it down to nothing again and build it up even quicker again. So, and that's exactly what I think he's going to do.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Look, man, of course it's a good thing, Tim. Of course trading back is a good thing, especially given the position that we're in with the quarterbacks that are there, it being a heavy draft. teams needing them. Obviously, it would be very smart in order to do this to jumpstart the new regime. The big cog in it is the fact of the business aspect of it all. And I understand we want to build the best football team possible. I'm all about it. I'm usually there with you. But we never are in this position. And I guess it's greedy, so to speak, and you should learn from your past, and I get it and everything like that. I think that Adam Peters is good enough to build the team without needing to trade back. Like, if you're looking for immediate, right away production and being able to produce a good football team next year, trading back isn't the way that you go, you know? So I don't know. I think that Peters is good enough that he doesn't need to trade back, get all these other picks, and be able to find great talent for this football team. Because I do think there are great pieces on this football team. I just think you need to get and hit the right ones, and you'll be in a good position.
I get everyone or some people's, I'm not even going to call it an obsession. I get people's thoughts about trading back. You want to build the team out, whatever, blah, blah, blah. We have a lot of holes. My one question to be for the trade back people, my one question would be this. 2020, we had the number 2 overall pick. We drafted Chase Young. If we went back in time, would we be drafting Chase Young, or would we be going with a quarterback like Tua or Justin Herbert? So for the trade back people, would you want to trade back in the number 2 spot and miss out on a guy like Tua or Justin Herbert, or would you draft a quarterback like Tua or Justin Herbert at number 2? You would draft a quarterback at number 2.
And
So I get like
somebody would argue that you could trade back and still get the Justin Herbert or Tua if you were to trade back in this draft, is what their argument probably would be.
but you're not going to get just like outside of Caleb Williams, Drake May, Justin Daniel or Jaden Daniels. It's a pretty nice drop off when you get down to the guys like Michael Penix and go JJ McCarthy's, and I mean Bo Nix had a horrible senior bowl week and stuff like that. So like, are we really looking at guys like a Bo Nix or JJ McCarthy at the end of the first round? Who I'm a Michigan fan, and I'm gonna tell you right now, JJ McCarthy,
I'm with it. Sorry, guys. My internet is going crazy right now, so I'm sure the other guys can't see it at the moment. It looks like Zoom just shut down on me. Hold on. Give me a minute here to be able to come back on there. Sorry, everybody. So if you can still hear me, I appreciate you. We'll be wrapping up this episode here, I guess, now because Zoom's decided to take crap. So I'm sorry if you've made it this far. You are a freaking champion. I really do honestly appreciate you a heck of a whole lot. I don't know what's going on because I still have internet, but Zoom just crashed. So I appreciate all you for coming on this far. Thank you for Ryan Fowler for joining us. Thank you to Andy Lockhart from the 1 Point Safety Show. Appreciate you, Hall. Sorry to everyone else that we couldn't get your questions in here on time, but appreciate you guys. Hope you have a great and fantastic weekend, and we'll see you guys again on Thursday. Washington football. Woo! What's up, everyone? This is Kyle from the Burgundy Zone. We are releasing our own merch to support the show. If you want to rock the Burgundy Zone logo or you want to see Reed's face on your shirt, we got it. We're starting with t-shirts, hoodies, and zip-up. So if you're a fan of the show, make sure you snag one before they are gone. Check out the link in our bio on Instagram, or you can find the link in the description of the video. Thanks again for all your support. Until next time.